There's a lot of still other circumstantial evidence that will be gathered between now and the trial date. You know, you still have 3 other crime scenes. You have his apartment, you have the car, you have his parents' house that all need to be processed for evidence of the crime. And then any other evidence that comes in between now and then. I think the biggest piece of evidence that jumps out to you is the DNA evidence on the sheet. That's the one piece of evidence that will be hard to explain as a defense attorney on the case.
Thanks so much for staying with us. We're continuing our deep dive now into the case against accused Idaho killer Bryan Kohberger. And as each side is gearing up to head to trial, one big question is being asked. Will the house where the homicides happened be torn down? Well, both the prosecution and the defense have emailed the university saying that they do not oppose the demolition of the crime scene, saying that the home has been substantially altered from its condition at the time of the homicides, and they're okay with it being torn down. So that tells us that a jury view seems to be off the table. But is there information that could still be learned from the home? We know family members are wondering if the house should stay up until the trial is over. Let's bring back in our guest, a trial attorney and DNA expert, Anne-Marie Schubert, and also want to welcome in another guest to the conversation. Joining us from Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan. He also hosts the podcast Body Bags. Be sure to check that out. Professor Joe, thank you for being on the program as well. This house, okay, Professor Joe, let me start with you here. Do you think there's anything at all valuable that could be learned by the jury if the house stays standing?
Sure, I think there is. All you got to do is reflect back to Parkland. You know, how long was that place locked down? Of course, that particular structure was under lock and key per a government agency. But, you know, it's my understanding now that the university possesses this home. So, you know, with that said, I think that to err on the side of caution here and not take down the structure is something that at least it's a tool for the toolbox. It's something that prosecution could have. I don't understand what the rush is. I've never understood that. Yeah, I know that maybe it makes people feel uncomfortable, but, you know, there's a lot in life that makes people feel uncomfortable. We're talking about the deaths of 4 people, and what's the harm in leaving it up, at least for the time being? You know, why is it? And I understand that they're saying that it has been altered from the original, status when they first worked the scene. However, you telling me that the floor plan has been altered, and sometimes you can glean from a relational standpoint of the movements of an alleged perpetrator to the place where the victims may have lain, those sorts of things to that environment. That can be very, very valuable.
I appreciate it, Professor Joe. I have a clip of Steve Goncalves, Kaylee Goncalves' dad, talking about this. Let's watch.
We communicated with some other families. There's 3 families that are concerned with that. We're trying to make sure that, that all the proper steps are done. There's audio, that, from my understanding, and if there's audio, I don't understand how you could take a house down and not say that people are going to want to hear those sounds from the location of the recording from inside the house, dog barking, things like that. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to do everything, and something like that is just evidence. It's not for or against, it's just evidence, so that's why we're trying to protect it.
Okay, Anne-Marie Schubert, want to pick your brain, please. And I'm not sure what all is within the realm of possibility either. Looking directly at the email from the state of Idaho here to the university, they said that there have been a lot of chemicals applied to various areas in the home, so there could potentially be a health hazard. But for the sake of our analysis, let's just say there's no hazardous conditions that would harm anybody by going through. If you're prosecuting this case, and you've served as a prosecutor, you were the DA in Sacramento County, California, would you want your jury going through this home? Why or why not, please?
Well, I think some of the comments that the professor made are valid points, you know, but I also can appreciate why people want to, you know, demolish it. But You want a jury. I've never done a crime view where they might have gone to see a car or something in a courthouse parking lot, but not, a trip to a home. But you also, if it's changed, that has potentially a significant impact on the jury. That's not really evidence from when the crime occurred. I would anticipate that in this particular case that everything has been done to photo document it, videotape it, sketch it, everything of that nature. So I can appreciate, I appreciate what the defense and the prosecution are saying. Listen, they have the inside knowledge. They know what they need for an adequate prosecution or an adequate defense. And the fact that they have both joined in and saying that they have no opposition, I think is quite compelling.
Appreciate it, Anne Marie. Professor Joseph Scott Morgan, I want to pick your brain on something. And this is a question I get asked a lot because often I get asked about the Kohberger case and people want to talk to me about it. What do you think? What about this piece of evidence? All that. But at the end of the day, one question I hear most often is, did investigators get the right guy? And I want to ask you that question because I know you've been digging deep, analyzing the evidence. You have expertise in the area of forensics. What does all the evidence that we know so far say to you, Professor Joe?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to Anne Marie's point, just in the previous segment, when you begin to think about the depth and breadth of DNA, it's quite amazing. And, let's throw out the number that's been thrown out many times, 5.37 octillion. let that kind of seep down into the groundwater there. 5.37 octillion. That idea that's the likelihood that it is him, and that is very powerful evidence just from a numerical perspective. When a jury that doesn't necessarily have to know anything about DNA or biological evidence, when you pose that to them, and a prosecutor that knows the jury and knows the court, and they can kind of frame that in such a way, that's very, very hard to overcome, I would think, for the defense. So now they'll begin to kind of pick away at those areas. I think one of the things that came up in the news few weeks back, and forgive me, I can't remember specific dates, but they were talking about how there were 3 other unidentified male samples that were found at the residence. However, we know that this location was a gathering spot. I'm sure you probably could have found a lot of male DNA in there. And we don't know what the sourcing of that DNA is, but when you put it on that knife sheath, Julie, it becomes very, very powerful.
It sure does, Professor. And we know initially they found just a profile. They didn't know who it belonged to. It was like a big question mark. What's on that snap? Just the snap. That's where they were able to get that. And then after other things, like, for instance, cell phone record information, they could see the pinging, and at the area of 1122 King Road, 12 prior occasions, Bryan Kohberger had gone there. They looked at surveillance video of that white Hyundai, and so then they decided to go to the Kohberger home and pull the trash. Really, really classic thing to do. And then they were able to say, oh, okay, offspring of Kohberger's dad is whose DNA is on this, and then do the cheek swab, button it up with a direct comparison. Now we're ready for trial. Anne Marie Schubert, when you did the garbage pool for the case against the Golden State Killer, it's my understanding that your team of investigators had to tap some of the local sanitation workers to work in conjunction with your investigators, right? To try to, not blow the investigation up, to draw his attention to it.
Yes, and it was our sheriff's office that led this part of the whole case. It was their team, very sophisticated. They've obviously done that on other cases when they need to get somebody's DNA. And so, yes, it was all. Initially, if you remember, we got a sample from his door handle from the Hobby Lobby, and then that, obviously was the big aha moment, and then they did a trash run, and in a very kind of formalized and structured manner, not to tip him off in any way.
Right, because being that he was a police officer, that was one of the other sinister things about this with Joseph DeAngelo and harming all of those people. And pleading guilty to 26 counts of murder and kidnapping, serving 26 life sentences, largely thanks to you, Anne-Marie Schubert, in your quest for justice for him. Big thank you to you for lending us your expertise this morning. And Joseph Scott Morgan, same thanks to you for lending us your expertise. Check out Professor Joe's podcast, Body Bags. It's outstanding. You will love it. I would love to have you both back very soon for more analysis. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much.